up in chains, led to the river. I was stripped.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, and welcome to our final session of Black August Weekly. Thank you all for tuning in with us today. So today we'll be gaining our inspiration and wisdom from the MOVE organization, specifically looking at the 1985 MOVE bombing. Our lineup is morning yoga with Dee Renee, followed by our Black August lesson with docent Harry Amana. Then we will be getting into our poetic expression with Miss Jasz. And finally, we'll be closing our meditation with Sheena Sood. So everybody, if we're ready, we can begin our morning yoga.
Greetings, everyone. All right, so as long as you have a chair, this is how we're going to get started. I know I'm kind of turned sideways because I want you to be able to see all of me, because we're going to actually stand up and use the chair a little bit today. We want to make sure that our feet are planted down on the mat. So if you're in a chair and your feet are like dangling, see if you have another one where your feet are like on the actual floor or the mat. All right. So we're just going to get started with a few big inhales. So maybe close your eyes. Take a nice full inhale through your nose. And then let it out the mouth. Let's do that again. Big breath in through your nose. And then let it out the mouth. On your very next one, we're going to close up the mouth and just do all of our breathing in through our nostrils and out through our nostrils. So breathe in through your nose. And let it out through the nose. Once again, in through your nose. And let it out through the nose. Beautiful. And I want you to try to keep that breath as we practice today. If you have a chair where you can grab the back of the chair, I want you to slide up a little bit. Puff up in your chest. Take the chin up. Relax through the shoulders. Take a full breath in through your nose. Exhale out. Do one more just like that. Exhale out. Take one more inhale just to like move back in your chair a little bit. Then on your exhale, I want you to just fold forward. Allow yourself to just come down to the mat. Maybe your hands come down to your feet. That's completely fine. I want you to separate your feet a little bit, maybe about shoulder width apart. See if you can bring that right hand down, right in between both of your feet, taking your gaze right to that hand. And then I want you to use your left hand and just see if you can bring it up towards the sky or the ceiling, and maybe taking your gaze up to that flying thumb. Continue to use that big inhale through your nose and out through your nose. One more breath, just like this. And then on your exhale, bring that left hand down and replace the right hand. And then the right hand will go up. So you're just going to twist the opposite way. Breathe. If you need to move your head around a little bit, just to release tension in your neck, that's fine. But continue to breath. Beautiful. On your exhale, bring that hand right back down. Good. And you're just going to sweep the hands all the way up towards the sky. Exhale, hands at your heart. As you bring your hands to your heart, maybe set an intention for your whole day. How will you create? How will you manifest? Just a quick intention. Beautiful. Then our next posture, we're going to try chair pose. I know we're already sitting in a chair, but we're going to just scoot up a little bit. Our feet are grounded into the mat. Then you can use your hands on a chair if you like. And all you're going to do is just see if you can kind of lift yourself off of the chair, just like I'm doing. Notice that my chest kind of pushes forward. And then you're going to see if you can bring the hands up. If this is too much, you can always continue to sit right back down in the chair and relax the shoulders. Either is fine, but all we're practicing is seeing if we can lift ourselves off of the chair. And again, if it gets too much, just come right back down to the chair. All right, you can bring your hands down by your side, exhale out. Beautiful. All right, so now we're about to stand up, guys. We're going to stand up and we're going to walk to the back of our chair. So I'm going to move my chair up some. Now that we have all done that, we're going to walk our feet back. So you'll put your hands at the top of your chair. Mine is a little low, so maybe yours might be a little bit higher. And all we are going to do is allow our chest to fold forward and maybe let your wrist or your hands rest on the top of the chair. If you like, you can bend one knee and then the other. This is a really good opening. I feel it mostly in my shoulders and the upper part of my body. Some people might feel it in their hamstrings. While you are here, maybe bend both your knees and then straighten right back up. Go ahead, bend both your knees, straighten right back up. You'll bring your hands to the top of the chair and then begin to just walk yourself right back in. Hopefully you guys are feeling good. We're going to put the right foot right where like the chair is starting, and then you're going to take that left foot behind you, plant it down, see if you can begin to bend in the knee. All right, so this is a warrior one. For support, you can continue to hold on to the chair. If you don't wish to hold on to the chair, you can go ahead and sweep your hands up high. Beautiful. All right, let's take that to the opposite side. So you can either bring your hands down or bring it to the chair and just step right back up to the top. You'll leave the left foot forward and then take the right foot behind you. Nice bend in your knees. So you want to make sure that knee is tracking over the ankle. Again, you have those same options. You can either keep your hands on the chair or you can go ahead and sweep the hands up over your head. Relax the shoulders. Beautiful. Let's bring the hands right back down to the chair. And just step right back up. So once again, all we're going to do is walk back again as if we're taking that fold. And you can just go into the fold if you like. But we're setting up for a warrior three. Okay? So I'm just going to see if I can slide my chair up a little bit more. So what you can do at first is take the right foot and just bring it behind the left foot a little bit and maybe come down to the big toe. If you're feeling supported and you're okay, maybe you begin to lift that right leg off of the mat. Again, the chair is your support. And if this was okay for you, that's great. If you want to venture out and maybe not use your chair, you can do that as well. Beautiful. Let's bring that foot right back down. You're in your fold. Good. Let's slowly just maybe come up just to stretch that out a little bit. Just walk up. Sweep the arms up over your head. Exhale, hands at your heart. Good. We're going to walk out so that we can do the opposite side. So you're just walking right back out. Allowing the chest to sink down. And again, you can start by bringing the left foot behind you and maybe bringing the big toe down to touch on the floor for support. You can stay here if that feels most comfortable. Or you can start to begin to let that foot reach up. Breathe. Then slowly you'll just bring that foot right back down. Walk yourself right back up. Good. Sweep the hands over your head. Exhale, hands at your heart. Let's find ourselves in a seat in our chair once again. Come right back to a seat. Hopefully you guys are feeling pretty good. If you need to move your neck from side to side, that's fine. All right, we're going to try a low lunge using a chair. So right leg is going to come out to the side just like this, and the left knee is just going to come down. So you're still sitting on the chair, right? The right thigh is supported. If you don't want to use the chair, you don't have to. And then go ahead and sweep the hands up. One more breath. Bringing the hands down. We're just going to get ready to take that on the opposite side. You can plant your hands on the chair. Just come back and sit on the chair. You'll just turn it the opposite way again. The left thigh is going to be supported by the chair, and all you're going to do is bring the right knee down. As you do so, everything is in alignment. Arms reach up. Relax your shoulders. Big breath in through your nose and out. One more breath. Bring the hands back down to meet the chair, and you'll come right back into a seat. Sweep your arms up. We're just going to take a forward fold before we close out. Exhale, go ahead and fold forward. You can bring your hands towards your toes. Let your head come down. Maybe bring your hands to your knees for a half lift. Exhale, fold once again. Hands sweep all the way up over the crown of your head. Exhale, hands at your heart center. I hope you guys are feeling good for the start of your day. A little bit of yoga. I am Dee Renee, and that's all I have for you today, guys. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you so much, Dee, for your wonderful sessions this entire season. It's been wonderful with you. And I want to say I love your leggings, by the way. All right, wonderful. I hope everyone's nice and loosened up and ready for our Black August lesson. Next up, we will be going to learn about the MOVE organization and specifically the MOVE bombing with docent Harry Amana.
My name is Harry Amana. I'm a docent at the African American Museum here in Philadelphia, and I'm a homeboy. I was born and raised in Philadelphia, primarily in North Philly and later on in Southwest Philly. Went to Philadelphia parochial schools and to Temple University. My presentation today is about the MOVE organization. MOVE, as you may know, is a radical group that had confrontations, that had actually two huge confrontations with Philadelphia authorities over the years. The most infamous was the 1985 firebombing of the neighborhood in Osage Avenue. On May 13th this year, 11 members of the Philadelphia City Council issued what they called an annual day of reflection for this incident that occurred 35 years ago. In part, their statement read, on the 35th anniversary of the MOVE bombing, a brutal attack carried out by the city of Philadelphia on its own citizens, we offer an apology for the decisions that led to this tragic event. We call upon the city of Philadelphia to declare May 13th an annual day of reflection, observation, and recommitment to the principle that all people are created equal and endowed with inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That last line, created equal and endowed with inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, should have a ring to you, because that's actually language taken from the US Constitution, with one exception. The US Constitution said that all men are created equal. Women were not included, really. So they've changed it, but they've appropriately taken it from the Constitution, because that's where the Constitution is held, here in Philadelphia. In 1985, this was a scene in Osage Avenue, in the region of Cobbs Creek Parkway, just a few blocks south of Market, and just a block away from Cobbs Creek Parkway, Cobbs Creek. After the fire, you can see this section here in the middle. It's the remain. 61 houses were burned down. We'll talk about this later. This is the presentation summation. This is what I'm going to talk about. MOVE was a radical anti-system organization that held many progressive and sometimes revolutionary ideas. It also had many more extreme ideals and practices that eventually butted heads with mainstream organizations and its neighbors. MOVE members lived in Fountain Village in the early to mid 1970s, but they eventually lost support of that culturally diverse community. Years later, they lived in a Black working class community in the early to mid 1980s, and again, because of their practices, lost support of that community also. In each case, the city under mayors Frank Rizzo in 1978 and W. Wilson Good in 1985 determined to impose its will. They took advantage of MOVE's loss of local support. And once they lost their local support, the city moved in and violently attacked them, destroying their property and engaging in battles that resulted in deaths and multiple injuries. You might want to look up Frank Rizzo. You may have heard of him recently during the street riots here in Philadelphia this year. His statue was removed. There was a giant statue of Frank Rizzo in front of the Municipal Services Building right across from City Hall. And every time you came around there, you saw Big Frank in a suit waving at you. It was always an affront to those of us who for 8 years fought against his actions, and even more than that, because before he was mayor, Frank Rizzo was the police chief, and he was racist, homophobe. And W. Wilson Good, who was the city's first Black mayor. So these happened under the watches of two different kinds of people, but nevertheless, it was government overstepping its powers. Who is MOVE? First of all, MOVE is not an acronym. For those of you who want to look it up, an acronym, it's a series of initials that represent words. So we have the NCAA, some of you sports fans might know that, National Collegiate Athletic Association, or the SPCA, the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. But according to MOVE, it's not an acronym. Quoting, it means exactly what it says: move, work, generate, be active. Everything that's alive moves. If it didn't, it would be stagnant and dead. Movement is the principle of life. And because MOVE's belief is life, our founder, John Africa, gave us the name MOVE. When we greet each other, we say, on the move. MOVE's definition goes further. On its website, it has different categories that include religion and life, natural law, etc. You can see that it includes information about their children, their appearance, raw food and the distortion of that, they say, how it was characterized, caring for life, and the name MOVE. As I said, MOVE had sometimes revolutionary ideals. And if you go on their website and you read each of those categories that I just showed you, you'll find that none of them seem to be too extreme. And MOVE dictated a monogamous, that means one man, one woman, nonviolent, natural lifestyle with a respect for all life and a denunciation of drugs, alcohol, and all chemicals. Its members' practice of this philosophy has been controversial. So it wasn't their philosophy, it was the way they practiced it. And some of these examples include the adoption of numerous unleashed stray animals, refusal to kill rats that neighbors said foraged on MOVE property, the burial of dead animals in their backyard, allowing the open natural composting of leftover food and garbage, eating raw and uncooked food, having natural birth at home without drugs or antiseptics. And this one may have been the second most, after the complaint about food and garbage and rats, the biggest complaint against MOVE after that was the broadcasting of loud, sometimes profane messages at all hours of the day and night. One of MOVE's tactics was to get on a bullhorn and just talk and talk and talk and put down the people that, or the practices or the systems that they thought were anti-life. The website is here on onamove.com. And this is a quote about who they are. The MOVE organization is a family of strong, serious, deeply committed revolutionaries founded by a wise, perceptive, strategically minded Black man named John Africa. The principle of our belief is explained in a collection of writings we call the Guidelines, authored by John Africa. Here's a MOVE timeline. Around 1972, Vincent Leapart, a reputed Korean War veteran, assumed the name John Africa and adopted a lifestyle philosophy that he published as the Guidelines. Soon, his philosophy was adopted by a group of followers who called themselves MOVE, and they all took the surname of Africa. So their last names all were Africa from henceforth. In 1974, they bought a 3-story house on 33rd Street in Pelton Village. You may know Pelton Village. It's a neighborhood now dominated by Drexel University, upscale gentrified houses and apartments. By gentrified, I mean that they've been, when they were run down, someone came in, bought them, redid them, modernized them, and sold them for 3 or 4 times what they have been paid for. In the 1970s, however, it was a racially diverse community of former hippie and counterculture residents. I myself lived there for a couple of years during this period, many of whom opposed Frank Rizzo, who they considered a racist. 1973 to 75, MOVE began to fortify its house and began its local and citywide protests and demonstrations of nearly everything it deemed to be part of the system. This included the Philadelphia Zoo because it caged animals, nearby racetracks because they abused animals by racing them, and even popular civil rights organizations like Operation PUSH, People United to Save Humanity, led by Jesse Jackson. MOVE's primary tactic was nonviolent, but highly annoying and disruptive. Members would use a handheld bullhorn turned up to maximum volume to engage in hours-long criticisms and insults at its targets, frequently disrupting the meetings of groups that held outdoor fundraisers or block parties in Pelton Village. Pelton Village was a community of activists, and many times they had activities, and MOVE would get on the edge of it. They wouldn't enter the block, but they would stand on the edge of the block, turn their bullhorns up, and just spout for hours. This language was frequently profane and insulting. One of their MOVE mainstays was in 15th and Market, near the subway gateways. At the time, I was a reporter for the Philadelphia Tribune, the city's twice-a-week Black newspaper at the time. And I myself had a few brushes with MOVE because I wouldn't respond to their frequent calls to cover their many street corner protests. In June 1975, MOVE took its protest to the Tribune's doorsteps. This is a page from the Philadelphia Tribune. That column on the left is a picture of the demonstration, which I took. And then there's a editorial at the bottom. And it says, the center's complaints, that MOVE's complaints, were lost in a sea of vulgarity and profanity. You bastards will scream about the foul odor of prejudice in the white man and try to overlook that rotten odor coming from your sick ass. That's the kind of thing they were shouting on the foghorn too for more than 3 hours this particular day. Shortly after this demonstration, MOVE members met with Tribune management and reached an agreement for the paper to run a weekly column by Louise Africa called On the Move. In exchange, MOVE agreed to purchase a substantial number of papers each week, which its members then distributed at their street corner demonstrations. We at the Tribune, reporters and editors, spoke against the deal, but to no avail. From June 1975 to April 76, On the Move appeared weekly in the paper and was sometimes used as a weapon to trash people with whom they disagreed or disliked. It became a weapon for them. On the Move by Louise Africa is that column on the left, the 2 columns on the left. That's the way it ran. In Pelton Village, as I said, they began to fortify your house. You can see they built up slats around it and fences. And at some point, they actually brandished weapons. And again, spoke loudly for hours and hours and hours. August 8, 1978. After an almost year-long standoff, the city had turned off utilities in the MOVE house. They blockaded the area. They secured a court order for MOVE to vacate the premises. And MOVE said, look, we don't follow your guidelines. You can't come in and inspect our house. There was an argument about, whether they could enter or not. When members refused to leave, police drove a bulldozer through the wooden barricade and used high-pressure hoses to blast thousands of gallons of water into the house. A gun battle ensued, and Officer James J. Ramp was killed by a shot to the back of the head. In addition, 7 other officers, 5 firefighters, 3 MOVE members, and 3 bystanders were injured. MOVE said Ramp was facing the house and was likely killed by a fellow officer. Delbert Africa was first to leave the house hands up, stripped to the waist with no weapons. He was beaten unconscious in front of news cameras, but officers were acquitted. 9 MOVE members were each sentenced to a maximum of 100 years in prison for third-degree murder for Ramp's death. 7 became eligible for parole 30 years later, but they were denied. They became known as the MOVE 9. These are some shots of Delbert Africa, as you see, stripped to the waist. The 2 in the first picture on the left, this is, Delbert said, the first cop hit me in the face with that helmet and it broke some bones around his eye. The next cop hit him in the jaw with the rifle, breaking his jaw and knocking him unconscious. He said he didn't remember much, but he does remember being pulled by his hair. You can see that in this picture here. And this was in front of cameras. So from 1978 onward, MOVE's primary focus was a campaign to free the 9 who were in prison for the death of Officer Ramp. These are the MOVE 9. Fast forward now to 1981-85, MOVE surfaces again. Now remember, they were still protesting, demonstrating, etc. But now there's an incident that's beginning to happen in the new house where they've relocated 6221 Osage Avenue in the Cobbs Creek area of West Philly. Neighbors complained for years that MOVE members were broadcasting obscene messages all hours. They also complained about trash and compost around the house. Meanwhile, MOVE again fortified the house and built a bunker on its roof, as you can see in these pictures here and here. You can see where they fortified the house. Meanwhile, MOVE again fortified it, and on May 13th, armed with a court order, police evacuated the neighborhood. They got everybody out of the neighborhood, took the cars off the street, and ordered that the house be bombed with 2 one-pound bombs from a state police helicopter. Now, one of the things that happened was once they cleared the neighborhood, they tried to enter through the basement on houses opposite MOVE, only to find out that MOVE had fortified the basement with railroad ties. Then they tried shooting and knocking down the bunker, but they found out that the bunker was reinforced with welded steel. So eventually they dropped these 2 bombs, and the fire went out of control. 11 MOVE members, including 5 children, died in the fire. Ramona Africa and 1 child were the only survivors. On this day, May 13th, 1985, the group denied police entry into their home. After an armed standoff and gunfight, police dropped 2 bombs on the building, which destroyed over 60 homes, killed 11 people, 6 adults, 5 children, and left 250 people homeless. No one in the government was ever charged. In the aftermath, Philadelphia Mayor W. Wilson Goode, the first Black mayor, he appointed a special investigation commission which held televised hearings. It issued a final report which was highly critical of government actions, including was its scathing denunciation of the city, because dropping a bomb on an occupied row house was unconscionable. It made no sense. No one from city government was criminally charged. In 1996, a federal jury ordered the city to pay a $1.5 million civil lawsuit judgment to survivor Ramona Africa and 2 other people who related to those killed in the bombing. This year, May 10th, in an article in The Guardian, a London newspaper, Goode was interviewed and he said, "The event will remain on my conscience for the rest of my life. I was a mayor. Although I was not personally involved in all the decisions, I was chief executive. It happened on my watch. I am ultimately responsible for those I appointed. I apologize for their reckless actions. He added that this was the fourth time he had publicly apologized. The first, he said, came on May 14, 1985, at a televised address to the citizens of Philadelphia through the Move family and their neighbors. Successful revolutionaries never move too far ahead of their people because they lose them. If the people are behind, it is the revolutionaries' task to educate them and not forcefully. Revolutionaries can't succeed when they alienate their constituents. The city was only able to move that way because the neighbors had begun to complain and Move had lost their support. History not heeded can repeat itself. So the things that happened in Houghton Village in the 70s were revisited in a way, in a worse manner in 1985. It seems neither Move nor the city learned this lesson. And here's something to look for today. Right now we have two encampments of homeless people, one on the Parkway, right near the Art Museum, and one a little further down on Ridge Avenue, in a business district. And already the people and the mayor has given two ultimatums. We don't know how this is going to end. Neighbors in the business district have come out publicly and said that they want them moved. And right now, I think it's still held up in court. But the question is, what is the city going to do with these people who refuse to move? And they're not armed, as far as we know. Here are some books about Move. I'm going to keep it here for a minute so that you can take if you're interested, you can take a screenshot. 8 books. And notice that the next to the last one is one by Louise Africa. And these are websites.
Here at 5:30, it has been 35 years since one of the darkest days in Philadelphia's history. The Move bombing carried out by police claimed 11 lives and continues to be a source of controversy and pain for the city. Action News' Gray Hall now joining us here in studio with more on the apology issued today, Gray, by some members of City Council.
Absolutely right. And those members who offered the apology to the city say as public officials, they have a responsibility to address this trauma and to make a good effort to right the wrongs of the past and also prevent something like this from happening in the future.
May 13, 1985 continues to haunt the city of Philadelphia. That's the day police dropped a bomb on a house along Osage Avenue occupied by members of a radical group called Move. 11 people were killed, including 5 children. 2 city blocks were burned and 61 homes were destroyed. The largely African-American community did not want Move in their neighborhood. Many complained about trash around the group's home, confrontations, and obscene political messages from a bullhorn. In order to evict them turned into a violent episode that is a dark day in the city's history. Tensions erupted. There was a standoff with police and officers eventually dropped a bomb on the compound. Move member Janine Africa says her son died in the fire.
Yes, my son, Lil Phil, was in the house. He was only 12 years old.
During the bombing, Africa was serving prison time for a 1978 confrontation that her group had with police, which resulted in the death of an officer. She was released from prison in 2019. 35 years ago, Wilson Goode was mayor of Philadelphia. He has since apologized several times for the bombing. On his 35th anniversary, he called on current city leaders to apologize again. Goode declined an interview and referred Action News to his article in the Guardian newspaper, where he said in part, an apology can't change the past, but it is a small step toward healing and the city will be better for it.
Show us. You know, what good is an apology without the action behind it? Show us that you're sorry and you don't never want something like this to happen again.
Mayor Jim Kenney says there is no plans for the city to apologize.
I think the most important thing about this issue is our administration's response to rebuilding that neighborhood.
11 members of Philadelphia City Council have called to make May 13th an annual day of reflection.
All right, we should mention former Philadelphia Mayor Wilson Goode also saying that this event will remain on his conscience for the rest of his life. City Council members say they plan to formalize this apology with a council resolution later on this year. Shari?
Yeah, it almost seems unbelievable that it happened. Gray, thank you.
All right, thank you, Harry, for your presentation. Very well thought out and well shared to everybody. All right, so we're gonna move on forward with our program and get to Poetic Expression led by Ms. Jasz.
Good morning, everyone. Docent Harry, that was a very informative presentation. Thank you for that. And Dee Renee, thank you for waking us up with some stretches. And I greatly appreciate the chair stretches. I'm going to use those. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Ms. Jasz. I'm a 10-year educator. I taught high school English in Philadelphia. I am a writer, mostly poetry, but also blogging and journalism. I currently am a contributor for Mogul Millennial, and I'm a community organizer. I serve as the founder and president of the nonprofit Urgent 365. I appreciate that the news report we just watched talked about reflection, because I definitely want to pay homage to those who've come before us, whether it be those who have survived and are still surviving, or those who lost their lives in the pursuit of things that we have always deserved. I also went into my own archives to find this picture of when my nonprofit held a movie night and discussion with Ramona Africa, who you see in the middle, and me on the right, along with our vice president, co-founder, and secretary. When I think about the MOVE bombing, I think about how it was a tragedy. And while there were controversies between MOVE and the neighbors, the main thing that stands out is the disregard for human life and the city's response. And I think that this is a continual disregard for life, and particularly Black lives in our nation, especially if we think about the times that we are in now with the repeat shootings that basically come up on an everyday basis. And so because these things had become such a part, unfortunately, such a part of our history here in America, I want us to be mindful not to make this like a norm that we just expect, but to really dive into the gravity of each event. And so we're gonna start with a warm up. So you will need something to write on or write with, whether that be your phone or a piece of paper. And I want you guys to write down 3 to 5 sounds or emotions that you think capture the scene, either of this MOVE bombing or any particular incident that might be happening now that you want to dive into. If you're thinking about the MOVE bombing, you can consider some of the examples, like there were helicopters at the scene, there are reporters, there are people in the house, babies in the house, and neighbors outside crying or just living their everyday lives or wondering what's going on. So I want everybody to write down 3 to 5 sounds or emotions. I'm going to give you about 1 minute to do so, and then we'll reconvene. So if people feel comfortable, if you could share some of your sounds and emotions. Some things that I wrote down included screams, gunshots, chaos, fear, uncertainty, and I'm interested to hear some of the things. Despair, I like that word. Thank you. Hopelessness, crackling, yeah, thank you, Hannah. Rage, fury. To further build on sounds from that day, I shared, uncertainty, yes, thank you, that was one of my words, hurt. I shared, or I pulled from an article, and it was actually an article that was referenced in the last presentation, so we're on the same page, even though we didn't even plan that. So this article was posted by Lindsay in 2015, Lindsay Norwood. And so the first sound that was recorded about that day came from the commissioner talking about being on the bullhorn. You can click. So in testimony, he talked about getting on the bullhorn and announcing some of what was about to happen. Next, we hear from Ramona Africa about how they aimed 4 water cannons into the home, and water is just pouring in the basement. So imagine what this rushing water just sounded like coming into the house. Then we also next hear from Birdie Africa, who also goes by Michael Moses Ward, about being in the cellar where tear gas started coming in and they had wet blankets and they had to pull them over their heads, but being kids, like there has to be direction given as to what to do and how to protect themselves from the tear gas. So imagine all of the uncertainty and the fear and the conversations happening in that moment. Next, we have a resident of the neighborhood talking about the helicopters everywhere. It wasn't just one helicopter, but there's just a lot of coverage in this moment. And this neighbor, Ron Archer, actually saw the bomb drop. Next, we hear again from Birdie Africa, who said that the bomb went off and the whole house shook. And I don't know about you guys, but I know even when I'm at my house, it's a little older, and when there's like a storm, the wind, I can hear that shaking and rattling the windows. So imagine what it might have been to be in a house where the whole house is shaking, and amongst all these other noises that you have going on around you. And then lastly, there was another resident who was just not even on the block, but playing basketball nearby. So just, you know, being on the court, having a regular day, and then hearing a whole explosion go off. And so I think that all of these sounds will help ground us into creating the scene that will come up in our writing prompt. And so we're going to look at a particular type of poem to write today. The poem we're going to look at is an elegy. You can go ahead. So what is an elegy? It's a reflective poem. And so I thought, just looking at the last presentation about how City Council wanted to acknowledge the moment, I think we are also in alignment with acknowledging and reflecting on this moment, but also paying, again, homage to and respect to those who've lost their lives in this event. We're specifically going to look at a poem by Sonia Sanchez, which I thought was highly appropriate because Ms. Sanchez lives in Philadelphia and taught at Temple for over 20 years, even though she was born in Birmingham, Alabama. In Birmingham. And Sonia Sanchez wrote a poem called Elegy for Move and Philadelphia. And what I thought was actually insightful about this was that the elegy is not just mourning Move, but also mourning like parts of Philadelphia that were lost that day. So we're going to look at this on the next slide. I'm going to read this poem. This is going to be our guide for the writing activity that we're going to do today. So after I read it, I'm going to highlight things that I want you to pay attention to, mostly involving the sound of the poem. Elegy for Move and Philadelphia. And this is only part one. We're not going to look at the whole thing. It's 8 parts. So we're just going to look at the first 5. 1. Philadelphia, a disguised southern city, squatting in the eastern pass of college cathedrals and cowboys. Philadelphia, a phalanx of parsons and auctioneers, modern gladiators erasing the beryllium of death from their shields, while houses burn out of control, too. Come on, girl, hurry on down to Old Sage Street. They're roasting in the fire. Smell the dreadlocks and black skins roasting in the fire. Come on, newsmen and TV men. Hurry on down to Osage Street. And when you have chloroformed the city, and after you have stitched up your words, hurry on downtown for sanctuary and taverns and corporations. And the blood is not yet dry. 3. How does one scream in thunder? 4. They are combing the morning for shadows and screams, tongue-tied without faces. Look, over there, one eye escaping from its skin, and our heartbeats slow down to a drawl, and the kingfisher calls out from his downtown capital, and the pinstripe general re-enlists his tongue for combat, and the police come like twin seasons of drought and flood. They're combing the city for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. 5. How does one city scream in thunder? And so, again, this is not the whole poem, but I want to dive into just a couple things that Sonia Sanchez does, even though I think this just captures a lot. And shout out to the line, again, for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, given what the city council members wrote. So in the first part, you see underlined some of the alliteration that Sonia Sanchez uses, which captures the alliteration of the poem. So Southern City, College Cathedral Cowboys, Philadelphia Phalanx, all of these repeat sounds, Delirium of Death. And then even like some of the like auctioneers and gladiators and the repeating of the sound. In the second part, you hear like a kind of like a conversational tone, like, come on, girl, come on, newsman, which is also a sound in and of itself. But then you also hear repetition of lines, hurry on down, roasting in fire, hurry on downtown, and building, and the way she writes the words differently. On the other side, in part 3, you see not only a repetition of a question, which is rhetorical, but also just some of the sound words included, like the scream and the thunder, the sound of thunder. And then lastly, in part 4, again, heartbeat, I feel like is another like sound word or feeling, and the repetition of they are combing through. And so I want us to keep this in mind as we write our poems today. And so here's our prompt. We have like 7 minutes to write. So given the Black lives lost, both in the bombing and just on a continual basis, we're gonna write an elegy remembering those who have been murdered, either in the MOVE bombing or in any other intentional act of violence. Using Sonia Sanchez's poem as a guide, be sure to include some sounds in your poem, whether it be repetition or noises or alliteration. Include a mix of feeling and emotion. And then for bonus, if you wanna either write from like different perspectives or like have different parts like Sonia Sanchez did, you can do that as well. As you write, I'm gonna put 6.5 minutes on the clock. I will also play some music to get your creative juices flowing. And then we will reconvene when the timer goes off. Yes, Annie.
Hi. Senseless killings continue to roar, continues for year and years more. The more I see on my phone, TV, computers, and papers, the more conversation of murders and more. The pain of loss is deep within. How do we find solace and healing to blend? I am uncertain in a hopeless world that may never end.
Yes, you killed that writing prompt. We had the repetition of sound, we had the rhyme, we had the repetition of lines, we had a capturing of emotions. I thank you for that. Appreciate you for sharing.
I have one.
Yes, I'm about to say, it looks like we have someone else.
Elijah, Jasz, where you at? Jarring, this pop, 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 pop. Pop, his beauty goes down. Pop, his smile goes down. Pop, his sweetness goes down. Elijah, rager, rages nonstop.
Wow. What's crazy is that type of poem, like with using like the sound of pop, onomatopoeia, or something along those lines, was definitely what I had in mind when I was thinking about this. So thank you for capturing that. You didn't even know that. That was very powerful. Anybody else?
I was thinking a lot about some of the Move 9 being in prison while their babies were murdered. So, to the 11 lost lives, what you would have become. Janet, Janine, Eddie, and Phil. Sue and Delbert, your babies murdered. While you remained in a cage, devastation, loss, confusion, rage. The pain, does it ever go away? Flames in the home, flames in our hearts, flames that were allowed to burn. The state murdered Move's babies and got away with it. The state hasn't apologized. Instead, they named a street after the mayor. Who authorized the murder of Move's babies? No good. We continue to mourn for Move, to call for justice. Long live John Africa. Long live Move.
Wow. I was like, oh, moved. I was about to like respond in the middle. I appreciate that perspective, especially looking at the moms, because I was reading an article about how like that's like Mother's Day, like May 13th. And so thank you for that. I appreciate that. All right, Richard, you're the last one, and then I'll wrap up.
Okay, here we go. How do my bones sound to you? Do it rattle like the chains as I stand on Market Street's square box in Philadelphia? How do my pursuit of happiness feel? Does it feel like the heartbeat or the drum that beats upon my chest because I ate that processed chicken I love to eat? How do chains look? Does it look like the child hearing a crackling, not from the fire from within, but the fire as the walls from without burn?
Wow. There was also perspective in that. I also appreciate that you incorporated the pursuit of happiness line. And then yeah, the inside the walls. I appreciate that. Thank you all. I won't take up any more time. So, you know, you can hit me up if you want to hear mine. Yes, but thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. Thank you for having us, African American Museum.
All right, thank you so much. Wonderful poetry, everybody. Wonderful, wonderful, all month long. I hope everyone is saving all of these poems and keep writing, keep writing. I know we'll definitely have more chances in the future because this is not our final time with Miss Jasz by a long shot. I know that. We'll bring her back. So now another day has passed already, another hour has passed, and we are going to close out our program with our meditation led by Sheena Sood.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Harry. I don't know if Dee is still with us. Thank you for that morning stretch. And Jasz, as always, thank you for giving us such deep and intentional guidance in letting us express. I so appreciate the curation and the magical curation that goes into these Black August weeklies. And so I'm really grateful for the AAMP. All right, so as we close out this beautiful program, I'm thinking a lot of Ramona Africa, right? This lone survivor who recently battled and won cancer, right? And continues to heal. And how I've often been invited to share yoga practice with her and do chair yoga sessions with Ramona as she's kind of moved into her healing process, right? And what I know about meditation, what I know about yoga is that these are practices that allow us to really get in touch with our own selves so that we can heal from the trauma of the state-sanctioned violence and surrounding, like, you know, that happened to Move and that continues to happen as we witness in existing societies. And so I just want us to, as we find our meditative pose and our comfortable position, right? You might be sitting on a cushion, you might be sitting on a chair, you might be sitting on a sofa or couch or your bed, right? You could be lying down if you want right now. It's totally up to you. You could be standing up and just finding grounding in your feet. Really, it's about finding your comfortable position. And I'd love to invite us to dedicate our practice to the Move family and especially to Ramona Africa, right? She's our West Philly warrior woman, an unsung hero in my opinion. And take your palms, place them somewhere that's comfortable. It might be on your lap, right? Mine are just on my knees, my legs are crossed, but really whatever comfortable position makes sense to you. Roll back your shoulders. Find that alignment in your chest, in your spine. And once again, find your breath. You're welcome to close your eyes. And if it also feels inviting, or if it doesn't feel inviting to close your eyes, you're welcome to just gaze intently at a spot right in front of you, or maybe the tip of your nose. And as you find your breath, I want you to take your inhales and pull the breath into your nose and allow the breath to flow down the back of your throat, to expand your heart and lungs, and to inflate your belly. It doesn't have to be that slow, it can be at your pace. But just really feel the breath moving in through your nose, down the back of your throat, your heart, your chest. And slowly leaving, deflating the belly on your exhale, escaping the lungs, leaving out the back of your throat and out of your nose. How are you finding presence with your breath? Finding presence with your breath as we continue to grieve. Grieve for the Move family. And hold space for the healing of Ramona. Breath in. Breath out. Breath in, and thinking of that intention that you may have set for yourself with Dee earlier. If your thoughts go to a to-do list or away from your breath, no judging yourself, just bringing it back gently. Breath in. Breath out. Follow your breath. Can you take that intention and share it? Sending some high vibrations to our sister Ramona, Africa. Taking that collective energy we've cultivated. Breath in. Breath out. Staying with your breath. Allowing that breath to help you find momentary presence in yourself. Momentary presence in your true nature. And I'll give us all a chance for 1 minute of silent challenge of just allowing yourself to be your own guide. Just breathing Noticing the breath going in and out of the body. Just noticing where your breath is. And once again, bringing it back. If a thought comes up, just allowing it to crash like a wave in the ocean. Recentering back on the breath. And I'd like to share a quote from Ramona that reminds me of the power of move, its connection and commitment to nature, commitment to radical healing, healing as a form of social justice. As we have to love each other, care about each other, encourage each other, and see the signs when somebody is traumatized and really having trouble. Give them a lot of attention. That is one reason why the MOVE organization has been able to maintain and sustain ourselves through all that the system has come at with us. We are not just an organization that leads to plan a rally or a demonstration. We are a family. Our meditation practice is a practice of self-love and also as a practice that we commit to so we can take better care of each other as a family. We give thanks for Ramona and her warrior light. I give thanks to each of you as we gently find and unfold ourselves out of this practice. Maybe we take a deep breath in together. Taking that inhale, opening our mouth on the exhale, let it out. Maybe shaking the body a little bit or swaying from side to side. Gently opening our eyes. And I thank you all. Thank you to MOVE.
All right. Thank you, Sheena. Thank you, Jasz. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Dee. And thank you to everybody that attended today.